names sometimes can be a challenge for mediums. A lot of mediums think that that's really cool when you get names. I've learned that if they can get them through, those in spirit will, but we don't need to necessarily give them as much weight as we do. But it was really something when I brought through a client's father earlier this month, and he showed me his personality, and he showed me every once in a while he was really spontaneous and would just jump up and do something and surprise everyone by this way of being. And I said, your father's showing me he was like a jack in the box, and he's emphasizing Jack. So I'm tuning into that, and he's telling me he's not exactly Jack, he's John. And he was. So explain to me, my guides, why it is that I don't get names all the time. And they just now said it's a frequency thing. And exactly what I said earlier, it's just not that important for spirits to spend the energy it takes sometimes to get an exact name through to a medium, but we do love when it happens. I had made a note earlier to share in teaching that those in spirit know when the client really wants to hear a name, but that it may not be a good frequency that somebody here could pick up, maybe a name that's hard to get through, that the medium might not be aware of. I've had some really unusual names lately. I didn't get them. My clients told me later. And I had made a note that sometimes they'll give the middle name if that's easier. And in that very reading where Jack in the box, John, showed up, later on, the woman's ex-husband showed up and gave me his middle name. I just thought that was so funny because I had just made that note about that. Then the father came back in, John the father, and he says, as long as we're moving letters around, he said this from the spirit world, from Jack to John, talk about the Scrabble games. My client eyes lit up and she said, that is a big hit. Our entire family is into Scrabble and we were always super competitive. So that's what I call one of those gold nuggets. I know my mom and I used to play Scrabble for hours. If a medium brought through my mom and Scrabble, I would know she's got Ruthie. So it's one of those things that's what we as mediums love, when you can pinpoint something super, super special. My clients had a son here in physical form still, and his father is across the veil, her ex-husband. And he showed me that he passed from a sudden event. He didn't come through specifically for apologies for her for being her ex. He had messages for his son, which was really beautiful. And his apology had to do with his passing. I didn't discern at all how he passed, but he said very clearly, tell them I should have known better. And she just shook her head and said, absolutely. And that's all she needed to know. That was the message. She understood it. And that's what's important. He showed that he's still very much part of his son's life, because he showed his son skateboarding, which is an absolute favorite thing that his son does. And he said to her, my client, his son's mother, watch out, he wants a tattoo. And she said, oh my God, he's only 15. And I said, well, no wonder you need to watch out then. So it was just a beautiful connection. Then we moved back to Dad, and all of a sudden Dad saluted me. With my Navy career, when those across the veil salute me, I know that they had military service. And he showed me that he absolutely did serve in the Army. It was very awesome to suddenly be with him, going back in time. As I heard explosions, I knew that he had combat service, and I knew it was Vietnam. This is the goal for all of you when you connect, to get to that place where you just know why you're sensing certain things. And she said, yes, that's exactly right. And he said, I did what was asked of me. I didn't want to go, but I went, and I'm darn proud of it. She said, oh my God, that's exactly what he used to tell everyone. So it was pretty cool. He showed me the flag that the family got. One could assume that most people with military service get a flag, but you never know. And that's what he showed me. So just all of you, when you tune in, trust what you're getting, report everything, be willing to be wrong, because when you're not wrong, it's a lovely memory for those who are still here. He showed me that my client had a sister, this Dad. And she said, well, actually, there are two of them, and they're going to be here in half an hour to visit. Now, can't you just see what's going to happen? the two sisters are going to come in. She's going to say, I just had a reading and the medium connected with Dad. And they're going to want to know, what did he say about me? So first of all, I missed that there were two. I got only one. So I silently said to him, all right, you better tell me some things about both of them so nobody feels left out. And it was very cool. He first started with my client talking about her relationship with her husband and how he saw that and how supportive he was. She loved that. It was absolutely accurate. He then described the personality of his other two daughters. He said one is very headstrong, always had to have things her way. And the other one, all she ever wanted in her life was to be a mommy. And my client sat back and said, oh my God, that's all three of us. And this, of course, was followed with Dad's message. He said, and I love you all equally. So a beautiful, beautiful message for all of them who were showing up in half an hour, which I just thought was pretty cool. Then he said to my client, say to her, how about that ring? Now, I hadn't seen my client's hands through the whole reading, and she held up a hand with the biggest diamond I think I've ever seen. I don't know how many carats it was, but he said it was passed down. And she said, yes, it was an heirloom in the family. And with three daughters, we didn't know who was going to get it. And I got it. And I said, well, don't you just love how your dad brought that through? How about that ring? So I love how personal this interaction is. Many people, when we start connecting across the veil, we think we're making it up. But notice how when you engage those across the veil, it becomes a conversation. It's no different than if they're sitting here in a physical body, because they are right here. And then her mother, my client's maternal grandmother, her mother's mother, stepped in just before we were wrapping it up. She said, just tell my daughter, her mother, the client's mother, who's still here, that I see her too. And I said silently, then give me a current event so we can show her this is not just a nice wishful thinking message. And I said to my client, your grandmother says your mother just had to take some aspirin within the last 24 hours. You can validate that by asking your mother. And my client sat back and she said, I don't have to ask her. I gave her those aspirin. So that was very cool. A nice validation that even the most mundane things our loved ones in spirit see and are part of.